broadcast, episode 18 with Dr. Mark Jesinoski, coming to you from quarantine in Fallbrook, California. You know, my mind was just all over the place before I started today. I imagine for all of you, your mind, you find yourself walking down many different pathways in your mind the past couple weeks. I think that's okay. I think that's normal. You know, I notice there's a sort of hesitation in me that I've been contemplating recently, especially when I look at posts online, when I look at social media, and there's this whole movement, there's this whole culture of people, and I'm very, very careful how I talk about groups of people because I think everyone overindulges in grouping people together and trying to judge people by their group status or by some stereotype. I think it's stupid. I think it's dangerous. I think it's weak-minded. I think it's lazy. So I'm going to try not to do this here. But there's a sort of rhetoric, there's a sort of movement, there's a sort of attitude that's portrayed in the modern spiritualist movement, which I'm being very amorphous there. But this idea that we have to be positive all the time, we just have to be upbeat, and we just have to put out positive vibes, and if we don't put out positive vibes, somehow that's wrong or not okay, and oh, you can't think that negative thought. Don't think that negative thought. I think that this is just me talking here, folks. I think that's a form of denial. I think it's a way of denying the authenticity of what we're actually feeling in the moment. If you're feeling something, you're feeling it. If you're having a thought about it, you've already felt it, because a lot of times our thoughts are instigated by the pulses in our mind and body. So if you're thinking about something, trust that you've already been feeling it in a deeper way. So for me, I can't believe there's a woodpecker or something on the roof today, pecking away going. Anyway, so I think it's a form of denial to say, I can only be positive, I can only think positive thoughts, I can only put positivity out there. If I have a negative thought, I need to push it away. I understand, and it's important to move in that direction of, I understand the importance of practice, the importance of practice, the importance of putting one's mind in the place that you want it, rather than where habituation would put it, okay? So you see, I'm kind of balancing what I'm talking about here. But in order to be able to practice that in a conscious way, you need to be authentic about what's happening in the first place, to be able to notice, okay, my mind is doing such and such a thing, my body is doing such and such a thing. I'm naturally having this response in the moment. And I think part of gaining wisdom, part of becoming a wise observer of your experience, is to be able to say, okay, this is what my body is feeling, this is what my mind is feeling. It may not be correct. I need to learn to listen to my emotions as a form of data. I need to learn to listen to my mind as a form of data, as a form of information based on what I have learned in the course of my lifetime. So it's not invalid. Your authentic emotional experiences in the moment are not invalid. They're not something you should automatically deny or push away, because they are full of wisdom. You just have to understand that it may be biased, it may be bad programming, because all of us have our own unique journey in this life. None of us have had a perfect upbringing, perfect parents, perfect teachers, perfect experiences. All of us have had traumas. All of us have, and what is trauma? It's really, how did we selectively attend to our environment over time? What story are we telling ourselves? How are we perceiving our life? How are we perceiving ourselves in the context of our journey, of our life? And how does that story tell us what we're seeing and feeling and thinking in the moment? So your emotions, the pulses in your body, which are based on your perception, your automatic perception, which is essentially your senses sending information to your limbic structure, your limbic brain, your emotional brain. We're gathering information from the outside world through our senses. We're gathering information from our inside world through our mind, through the mind thing, through the thought thing. And then our limbic brain says, boom, let's send a pulse through the body that's based in survival if we detect something is wrong. The limbic brain works automatically to keep you safe, particularly the amygdala. But we don't understand that all so well. So I just say broadly, this limbic structure that we think of as this emotional brain can send signals out into your body to react, I believe, in a couple hundred milliseconds, just really quick. It's based on data gathered by your external senses and your internal mind in the present moment. It responds automatically to keep you safe. It's based on past programming and genetics. It's based on biology and programming, you could say. So whatever journey you've walked in your life has kind of programmed your mind and body to respond a certain way, and it's going to do that automatically before you think. Thinking is slower. Literally, the process of thinking is slower than the automatic responses that happen emotionally in your body. So all of that to say, I think one needs to be authentic with what is happening in the mind and body in order to hone that structure, in order to hone that system. We need to listen to it. What is my body telling me in this moment? What is my mind telling me in this moment? What kind of data can I glean from that? Is it correct or incorrect? That takes a lot of tolerance, a lot of distress tolerance, a lot of patience in order to take a step back and say, okay, wow, I'm feeling anger in my body. What is that really telling me? Oh, it's telling me I'm injured. Okay, why am I injured? Well, because this rule was broken. A certain rule was broken, a certain agreement was broken, and I feel injured, but it happened so automatically I didn't even realize it, and now I'm feeling angry. That's a pretty normal experience. I think a lot of people automatically deny that, whether it's in this modern kind of spiritualist movement or whether it's just a normal human thing. We find all sorts of amazing ways to deny the reality of our physical, emotional, mental, whatever. We deny our experience in the present moment to protect ourselves from our perceived reality. We start doing it as little children. It gets more and more complex because we get really good at wrapping our minds around ideas and stories and myths and rules and fears. We take this thing we call danger and we start wrapping a story around it. We start wrapping sensations and smells and pictures and ideas and memories and rules and all these things around this structure of I want to be safe. Why do we want to be safe? Because we're mortal. At the bottom of this story is, shit, we're mortal. We have limited time. We live in this illusion that we have unlimited time. We live in such a bubble in our very protected world that we have this illusion that somehow we're safe and protected. We can put off our mortality thing because we actually live in a pretty safe place. There's places in the world, like just off the top of my head because I've read about it, the pygmies in Africa, they just have to accept that death is a normal part of life. Death happens regularly. You might get malaria, you might get yellow fever, whatever. You might get something, cholera, that leads you to die, leads your child to die. I'm not saying we should rejoice in that or that's a good thing. I'm saying it's a regular thing for most life on the planet except ours. Of course we all experience death, of course we all experience fear, but we're just not used to it. A lot of us are insulated from death, from fear. Part of what I've really appreciated working with veterans is that they're not insulated from that. So they have to face these deep, profound fears very early in their life. And I think they have the potential to turn that into real wisdom if they're willing to do the work. And I've gotten to know so many veterans that are just so wise because they've had to go down the deep, dark places in our life that we usually deny. We usually cover denial. We cover our fear of death. We cover our proclivity to do angry, mean things. We don't want to live in reality. And I realize I'm kind of flowing here today. I'm kind of just following a thread. And rather than trying to bring myself back where we were going, I'm just going to keep on talking and keep flowing. I think that we use all sorts of different tools to keep ourselves from experiencing reality. We keep ourselves at a distance. And I think last 2 podcasts ago, episode 16, I talked a lot about separation, how we separate ourselves from ourself. We become separated from ourself. We become separated from the other, from the world, because of our perception of injury early in our life and the things that we do to protect ourselves. So we distance ourselves from fear by taking that danger thing and wrapping a story around it. And pretty soon as adults, we do a pretty good job of keeping ourselves safe from that danger thing. We can tell all kinds of stories to ourselves. One of the big stories we tell ourselves is that we live in a place where we are so safe that we're never going to have to face a pandemic like we're facing right now. We don't want to admit that we're creatures of nature and we live in nature, and that nature does things sometimes to set the record straight. Mother Nature sometimes needs to hit the reset button. Sometimes, in our need to consume, in our need to use, in our need to to narcissistically believe that we are in power and control, we cross the line. We cross the line and we get a little shot across the bow, and I think this is a bit of a shot across the bow right now. So when I started today, my mind had a lot going on because my mind is picking up on lots of red flags that I have learned over the course of my life are not things that I want close to me. That danger part of my mind has been telling me a story, or rather, my mind has been telling a story to cover up my fear of what happens when your safety and security and employment are all at risk. What happens when you're forced to stop running around doing all the things that you're doing to distance yourself from your real feelings, from your real experiences, from the relationships that you're closest to, like your wife or your husband? What happens when you're put in a position of submission and you have to slow down and you have to face yourself? You don't get to run around and distract yourself. You don't get to indulge in this story that you've been telling yourself. You don't get to indulge in the illusion that we've created. You have to slow down and take a good hard look in the mirror. And you have to feel feelings that you usually can easily push away. And you have to think thoughts that you can usually easily push away and rationalize. And now even fairly successful people are sitting there in their home, having to deal with their spouse, and having to think about security, and having to think about safety, and having to think about their own mortality. Denial is powerful right now. There's a lot of denial going on. But that thing that's deep down in your shadow, that thing that's deep down, all the dark places within ourselves that we turn into mythology and we turn into stories and we're turned into devils and demons and darkness and ideas, what is really that we are afraid. We're afraid of our own mortality. That becomes fear. It becomes a story. It becomes harm. It becomes manipulation. It becomes division and separation. It becomes right and left. We turn our fear into ideas and tribes and rules and structures that keep us separate and keep us dangerous. The shadow is not the danger. It's running away from it that is. So you know what's beautiful about this time? Is we're being put in a position of submission as a globe of people, as a culture of people. We're being asked to be still, to notice what our minds are telling us, and to have to look at all these different things we're telling ourselves. And rather than doing the thing I see a lot of people doing that I alluded to earlier, the modern kind of spirituality of, I just need to think positive thoughts, positive, positive, positive. I can't acknowledge my real feelings. How about sit back? This is what I had to do before the podcast started today. I had to sit back and I had to breathe and I had to notice, what is my mind telling me? More specifically, What is my emotional body doing automatically that I'm starting to turn into a story? I've been sifting through this a lot through the last 2 weeks, really the last week though, especially the last few days, when I'm doing what all of us are doing. I'm sitting at home, I'm doing therapy from my home office. My caseload has been dramatically reduced. I'm not whining about that. I'm just being objective. I'm and we gotta laugh. We have to laugh during this time. But, like a lot of us, I'm in a position of submission right now that I probably wouldn't choose. And the person that's been trying to leave for the past 2 years is suddenly, we're stuck together. And I have to smile at this. And I could talk about all of the nuances. There's a lot of cooperation there. There's a lot of progress there. There's a lot of good things there. Blah, blah, blah. I don't want to tell you a story right now. I'm stuck with the person who's been trying to leave for a long time. And there were plans for more formal, physical separation. And this thing happened. And guess what? We're stuck together. We have to work together. I blew up earlier today. I know why I blew up. I can dissect it. I don't think it's worth it right now. But we're stuck in the same space together with heightened fear, heightened insecurity, heightened financial insecurity. Our children are at home who are awesome. Not complaining about them. I love them so much. But we're having to make it work, like all of you. All of a sudden, we're all stuck together. But the beauty of that? This is exactly what people need to do to change. This is exactly what people need to do to grow. Any good therapy, whatever kind of therapy it is, you have to be still. You have to stop running away from what you've been running away from. You have to stop denying your reality. Essentially, you have to stop distancing yourself from your fear. You have to start looking into that fear, which we would think of as shadow work in some contexts, especially in the plant medicine world. Basically, you got to look into your shit. You got to look into the story you've been telling yourself to cover up the fact that you're just fucking scared. And I'm fucking scared. And we're all just a little scared. And once you take a look at that fear and you see it for what it is, which is what I love about my friends who have served in war, the warriors of our culture, they have had to stare fear in the face and smile at it. And for those of them that are able to work through that spiritual injury of war, for those of them that are able to make meaning out of their injuries and wounds, for those of them that are able to grow through their pain, they become shamans of sorts. They have a wisdom that most of us will never have because they have faced the deepest, darkest things known to man, known to humanity. So once you are put in a position of surrender, once you are still, once you stop wiggling and squirming and running away and buying your Starbucks every day and having the same rituals and routines and things that you keep you safe from the illusion of your own reality, rather the things that keep you locked into an illusion, the things that keep us from reminding ourselves of the fact that we are floating around on a tiny speck of dust through infinite space, and we are very, very small and very, very much a part of it all at the same time. So my mind and body are telling me all kinds of stories about how I should react. And sometimes I get hooked into it. Sometimes I get a little angry. Sometimes I get a little fearful. Sometimes I get a little lost in my emotions. Sometimes I play a victim for a minute, like I did the other day when I was rightfully so probably talking about the bailout, the government bailout, how it makes us more dependent, how of course common people are not going to benefit from it as much as the corporate welfare system that uses events like this as an excuse to put money in their pockets. It's how it works. It's how it's always worked. So that's a real thing. It's a real thing that we should be aware of. keep people scared, broke, and fearful, scared, broke, and fearful, and you can control them. You can make them dependent. I understand all of us want to be bailed out. All of us want life to go back to normal. All of us want to get back to the illusion that we've created to protect ourselves from what we're so goddamn afraid of. Do you really want to go back there? Do you really want to go back to the illusion? Do you really want to go back? I realize even with me, I'm going to go back to a certain routine. I'm going to go back to a certain, habituated life to an extent. But I know I'm going to let go of some shit because of this. I know I'm going to refine just a little bit more because of this. I'm going to let go of some attachments. I'm going to let go of some fears. I'm going to let go of some illusions. I'm going to stop consuming so much of what is put in front of me automatically. It's like masturbating all the time. We're masturbating, consuming. Gimme, 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 gimme. Me, 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 me. We're feeding off a machine. We don't need to feed off of it, folks. We do not need to feed off of the machine that is presented to us. Would we have to face fear? Yes. We would have to face fear. We might even live a little bit more dangerously. That might be a good thing. So I take a breath to slow down, to reset my mind, to get myself back on track. These are indeed strange times. And remember, your mind and your body are made to respond automatically in the moment based on the journey that has come before this moment, based on the journey of your life, and the story you're telling yourself is how you will respond in this moment. So all of us are experiencing something that we have never experienced before. Most people that I know, even my oldest friends and family, have never experienced what we're experiencing right now. So our body and our mind are telling us something is wrong. Our body and mind are telling us, this is how emotions work. I don't know what's going on, but I feel stuff. So let's crank up the fear. Let's crank up the pulses in the body. Let's do that reaction respond thing, and let's freak out a little bit. All that your emotions are saying is, hey, we don't know what's wrong, but we're definitely picking up on the radar that something is off, and it's based on our past experiences. So guess what? All of us have been living a certain way for a long time, and that's not necessarily the norm. You realize how we've been living as a human species for the past 100 years is so dramatically different than how anyone in nature has ever lived before? It's almost hard to make a comparison. So suddenly we're asked to slow down. Suddenly we're faced with something from nature that happens, that's happened many, many times before. And we can't hide far enough. We're trying to get away in our houses. We're trying to hide in the corners. We're trying to shut down everything to protect ourselves from what? What are we trying to protect ourselves from? We might have to let this illusion go. We might have to let some of it crash and fall. We might have to let some of it fall apart. You know what? It's an opportunity. You've been given a gift. You've been given an opportunity. I've been given a gift, an opportunity to slow down, to stop acting out our fears through other people and through our life, to stop indulging in this illusion that we have created that is not real. Maybe Mother Nature is asking us to get back to where we come from, to not create this false narrative, this false reality, to not continue to wrap a story around the truth, to not continue to overcomplicate the simplicity of the present moment through the stories we tell. We've been given an opportunity to grow. We've been asked to be still. We've been asked to slow down. We've been asked to stop acting things out that keep us at a distance from our true feelings, from our true fears, from that deeper stuff that's beneath the surface of the water in the shadow space. The monsters and the myths and the legends and the ideas, they're not real. In my opinion, they're manifestations of the stories we tell ourselves to keep ourselves safe. I'm not, ironically, this is something I'm not going into today because it'd be a whole other tangent. That doesn't negate God. It doesn't take away God. It doesn't cloud that at all. For me, it actually makes me feel closer to God. It makes me feel closer to spirit. It makes me feel closer to one source. It makes me feel closer to nature and earth and being, because I'm getting rid of all the shit in between. I feel the divine within much more profoundly when I quiet my mind, when I take a breath and let go of the story that I've been telling myself, and I allow myself to feel the truth of what I'm feeling. I'm like, okay, this is what my body's telling me. This is what my mind's telling me. The more I can learn to listen to it, the more I can learn to refine and hone this beautiful instrument that we've all been given, this beautiful vessel that we're all riding around in. You can refine your emotions. You can refine your thoughts. You can refine your theorems and ideas and constructs. You can become very adept at navigating your mind and body in the context of your life. You can truly become super adept at it. But I'll tell you, it takes being willing to listen to what your mind and body is telling you, to recognizing they're telling us a story, to recognize that in times like these, we freak out in all sorts of different ways, and the best thing you can do is to slow down and be still and to listen and observe. To let the emotions express themselves without necessarily needing to act them out. And then to start refining your story, to start refining your attachments, to start refining your life. All the shit we've been holding on to keep ourselves safe. The things we consume, the things we eat, the things we nibble on because we just can't sit still and be. We've been given an opportunity to let go and to look deeper. We've been given an opportunity, as this article I read yesterday about utilizing psychedelics, specifically utilizing ayahuasca to see the truth, utilizing plant medicine to understand why we are in the circumstances that we're in right now, to recognize that before a butterfly, before a caterpillar goes into the chrysalis, it consumes and consumes and consumes and consumes everything. And it does that to prepare for going into the chrysalis. It goes into the chrysalis to go through the metamorphic process to become a butterfly. It comes out a butterfly. Perhaps that is what we are doing as a human species, as a human culture, as a human family right now. Perhaps we're being given an opportunity to be still, to listen to our minds and bodies and our stories and our communities and our families authentically, to be squished together, to not be able to hide from the things we've avoided, to not be able to hide from those arguments that we've been avoiding and the fears we've been avoiding and the boundaries that we've been avoiding and the hurt that we've been avoiding. Just look at it honestly. Look at it openly. Lay it on the table right now. I know we still have these things. We have our phones, these goddamn phones. We jerk off with these things all day long. Put the phone down. I'm working on this right now. Put the phone down. Put the distraction down. Just be. Sit. See what comes up in your body. See what comes up in your mind. Look at all the fears that you're experiencing right now. They're legitimate and they're a story. They're legitimate and they're a story. What are you really afraid of? What can we let go right now? What attachments are we holding on to make ourselves feel safe and comfortable that we don't need anymore? Do you really want things to go back to the way they were before? Perhaps letting some things go away so that we can go into this chrysalis and become a better version of ourselves. Allow it to happen. Maybe we don't need to resist it. Maybe we don't need to fight it. Just like you can allow the emotions in your body to arise and to express, and you don't need to act them out, you can actually let rage or anger or fear rise to the surface, come out of that deep, dark water, and just look at it. Look at it for what it is. Realize it's telling you a story. It's actually telling you how you perceive your life, and that is where you can begin to truly change. You don't have to tell yourself that story. You don't have to hold on to the attachments you have. You don't need to keep consuming the way you are. What if you could just be in the present moment? Take a good look in the mirror. Recognize that this present moment is yours. This present moment is where you are. This present moment is your place of creation. What would you like to create in the next second? What would you like to create in the next 5 seconds? What would you like to create in the next 10 seconds? There's a story there. You can allow yourself to live in this present moment from a place of love, from a place of connection, from a place of openness and willingness. Just having a positive attitude in this present moment. Or you can fill this, you can act out your fear in this present moment. You can act out your anger like I did earlier today. It's okay if you fail. It's okay if you make mistakes. Keep that in mind. The point is, you act it out, you feel it, you notice it. Oops. Let's look at that experience as a source of wisdom. And let's try to refine it a little bit. I'm going to try to refine myself a little bit as I go here. As I said on Facebook this morning, I'm going to take a good look in the mirror and notice what my mind is telling me, what my body is telling me, what I consume, what I'm attached to, what I use to distract myself from my fear. And I'm going to look into my fear. I'm going to look into my shadow in a deeper way. I'm going to do that shadow work. I'm going to let myself go into a chrysalis, and I'm going to see what comes out on the other side. And I would invite you to do the same. Blessings and love, safety and joy to all of you on this journey. Take care, friends.